There are more than 1 billion people worldwide with a disability or impairment. Hi, I'm Courtney Trelecki, External Communications Manager with Atos North America. Thank you so much for joining us today on Global Accessibility Awareness Day. Today marks an annual event focusing on digital access and inclusion for all. The purpose isn't just to talk about it, but to get people learning and thinking about digital accessibility and how they can and do make a difference. Our mission is to ignite your curiosity about the endless possibilities offered by modern technologies. These innovations hold the potential to empower every individual. By actively listening to diverse users, we continually discover technology use cases that can advance society's well-being. Information technology plays a pivotal role in enabling active participation from everyone. In the next hour, we're going to dive deeper into implementing mainstream technology in inclusive ways, speaking with experts in accessibility, showing you demos of inclusive tech at work. We'll also be sharing experiences which showcase the power of using mainstream technology for inclusion. Now we want to go ahead and check in with Javier Ponce Suarez. He's the head of digital workplace here at Atos North America. He's hosting a fireside chat alongside Mario Tarallo, product management director with Nextthink.
Welcome. So my name is Javier, and this is part of the Atos 2024 Global Accessibility Day. In this session, the fireside section, we have with me Mario from Nextthink. So Mario, do you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. Hi everyone. It's a true pleasure being here. I'm Mario Tarallo. I'm a product director at Nextthink, and looking forward for this chat, especially knowing what's the topic that we're going to discuss.
Thank you, Mario. Hey, look. So again, as I said, my name is Javier. I'm leading one of the businesses in North America, the business workplace. I wanted to start first discussing a bit more about why accessibility is a key aspect for us. The way we see it in Atos is part of our journey in inclusion. And we have learned throughout so many years that embracing people with disabilities really results on us delivering better services and outcomes and innovation. In workplace, we are trying to enable people to really liberate the maximum potential, make them more productive, providing them the better tools and support wherever they are. So what we see in Atos workplace is we really put accessibility not as an extra or added value. We really bring accessibility at the design process of all our products. So we see this more important right now with all the transformative environment, the hybrid working, the generative AI, the new generations, a very, very aging workforce happening right now. So more importantly, when we started our partnership with Nextthink years ago, we focus on data and experience. So perhaps, Mario, you can explain more a bit about what is Nextthink, a bit about our partnership and that connection between data and experience.
Absolutely. By the way, first of all, I'm so happy about the partnership between Atos and Nextthink, and even more about what you are doing, leveraging Nextthink for accessibility. And yeah, we are partner. We've been a partner for a while indeed so far. And Nextthink is a company that provides software solutions for basically enabling organizations in better measuring, monitoring, and improving the digital experience of their employees, right? And it's needless to say, our core is the digital part of the overall employee experience nowadays, right? Especially especially thinking about what happened after the pandemic and new ways of working started to be there. And what we observe is a clear disconnect between what organizations and specifically IT departments think they're providing as a digital experience to the employees, and what instead the employees feel and perceive on a daily basis, right? What we do in Nextthink is that we provide these IT departments with the right data, to understand what's going on. So from the employee perspective, but also with the right insights to understand how things can be improved, and finally with ways of actually deploying and executing the improvements.
No, that is great, Mario. Thank you for that. I mean, we all love data. All of us are working on this industry, but we find obviously Nextthink and our partnership very visionary on that, and really investing a lot of our focus and leadership towards bringing value with that data. So coming back to the data and the technology and the new trends, and really going forward into the accessibility, and what is that intersection? As you know, Mario, we are working heavily to use all our tools and everything that we can do to really understand better what is the accessibility status from any of our customers and everybody that is using our services and our products. We are putting the data together, we are getting very granular, trying to understand what is the impact and really bringing that to life. So perhaps you can also expand more about that, about what is some of the use cases that you're working on and some of the future roadmap that Nextthink will bring to help us going forward in this journey.
Definitely. Indeed, I can think at least of a couple of ways you have been using Nextthink, right, to design and to help companies designing more actionable, more accessible digital workplaces. One way is providing companies, once again, with the right type of visibility on, for instance, what are the assistive technologies that are out there in the organization. What I mean by assistive technology, they are pieces of hardware or software that enable people with impairments or disabilities to actually use the software, right? A typical example is a screen reader. A screen reader is a software that reads out loud what's on the screen and the options available for the user, so that, for instance, a blind person can use that software. So one thing that you did with Nextthink is to bring visibility on, first of all, what type of assistive technologies are present in the organization? Where are they deployed? What type of versions, for instance, of screen readers are out there? And the insights that come with that, right? Maybe the numbers that you see are not the ones that you expect. Maybe you see that that technology should be deployed somewhere where it is not as of today. So you can take action. How can we consolidate? How can we bring new technologies, new versions that will, at the end of the day, make the workplace more accessible? And the second way we are using Nextthink on that topic is once we know that the assistive technologies are out there, the next question is, okay, but are they used? So what is the adoption of these technologies, right? And if the adoption is not the expected one, what can we do to improve, right? For instance, if we see that the adoption of a given software, and by the way, software can even be some in-product features that are already present in some common browsers, operating systems, and so on and so forth. If we see that the adoption is not the expected one, we need to try to understand, first of all, why. Maybe there was the deployment of a business application that for whatever reason had an impact on the assistive technology and the way it's used. Or maybe it's just a matter of bringing more awareness to the employees, to the end users, and therefore launch campaigns. And also Nextthink can help there to inform users about these technologies and train them.
That is super interesting. And by the way, Mario, I'm obviously following up very closely you guys' development in the market, and I know latest investments are focusing more on adoption and changing behaviors on users. And I think it's a very smart way to move into that intersection of applying technology to people. Do you want to share anything about your own journey in Nextthink, or as a product manager for the products when it comes to accessibility, and what is that we may see in the future?
Absolutely. Because indeed, at Nextthink, we also work on our own accessibility, right? We want to make sure that the Nextthink products are as accessible as possible and can be used by everyone. So what we do to make this happen is a few things, right? One thing is we make sure that our developers and UX designers are trained so that they know how to actually design and develop, software in an accessible manner. And that's the first thing, and one of the most important one, because you want to, to address this at the source. But then, despite the best efforts, always there is room for improvement, and that's why we also get audited on a regular basis by third parties that basically check, the compliance of our solutions against a few key principles, typically the ones of the WCAG. There's a bit the industry standard when it comes to accessibility guidelines. And based on the results of the audit, then we plan and we execute improvements, right? So it's kind of it's not something that you do and you check the mark and it's done. It's really a continuous journey because of course, things keeps evolving, new features keeps coming and so on and so forth. So for instance, to be concrete, last year, what we did was to invest a significant amount of effort into, for instance, making Nextthink more accessible from the, for blind or visually impaired persons. For instance, the colors and the contrast present in the interface should be in a certain manner. Or we injected pieces of code so that a screen reader can actually read what's on the screen, therefore allow people to actually use the product. So once again, it's a continuous journey that never stops, and we keep working on that.
I am I'm very happy to land and hear from you all the focus that you guys have put into this. Again, to your point, it's all a journey, but I think it's important that we personalize that journey and we really think about creating more accessible products for everybody. Do you want to share any final thoughts, any final key takeaways for everybody who is listening or who is watching, Mario?
Yeah, look, at the end of the day, when I think about diversity, inclusion, accessibility, these topics, and to me this translates into more perspectives, more points of view, more discussions, more ideas, that at the end of the day translates into better ideas and better features, better products, if I think about Nextthink, right? So working on these topics, I believe, is not just the right thing to do, but it's also the best thing we can do at the end of the day to build a better product. So it's not just a social responsibility thing, but it's really at the end of the day a strategic advantage to to be better positioned to ship better products and be successful while making sure that everyone can use our solutions.
I agree 100%. I truly believe, truly believe on, and we have been like this in Atos for as long as I can remember. I've been in the company 20 years. That embracing accessibility, embracing diversity is really bringing innovation and is bringing a value to everybody, and that's the right thing to do. As a key takeaway from me as well, team, is we are using this kind of key partnership, strategic partnership, and thank you, Mario, for your time, to really expand everything that we do from a product, from a service standpoint, our global service desk, everything with more thinking as a design principle with accessibility. Accessibility is a journey, but at the same time, I think we are in a very, very interesting moment in the industry. Everything is very transformative. Generations are changing very rapidly, and technology is allowing us to really execute very quickly. So get in the journey quickly, get on, learn, and start implementing some of those products, because it's going to help you create an impact in your organization and the society. So with that, again, thank you, Mario. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
And I'll get back to the team now. So thank you, everybody, for watching. The team has prepared many other sessions for the day. So hope you join us. I think after us coming some cool demos with Gen AI and readers. And so, well, again, thank you for watching. Bye-bye, everybody.
I'm Dave from Microsoft. Please watch the video where I demonstrate how I use Copilot or generative AI to really help me as a professional with a disability. Today, I want to share with you a video of how the power of Copilot can really assist those with disabilities. Now, I'm not talking about accessibility features within M365 Copilot. I'm simply talking the benefit to somebody with a disability. Full disclosure, I'm a Microsoft employee, but today I'm talking to you as a person with a disability that has struggled doing communications and emails and PowerPoints throughout my 25, 30-year career and showing how now we can be at a better place in the world to have technology assist us for those things that other people get to take for granted. So usually I one or two finger type my emails, which takes about 8 or 9 minutes depending on the length. Even if I dictate it, it's a lot less effort with my hands, but it still takes a amount of time. By the time you edit it to written verse and clean it up when it doesn't interpret you properly. So simply, I'm just going to show you from keystrokes how this benefits. So I'm going to give a generic example. I typed in a command here. It says, draft an email to my colleague Andrew to discuss the benefits of agile delivery for his team based on my many years of experience. So I'll hit generate. And if you notice, it's generating the message. And it said, based on my many years of experience, I believe that agile delivery benefits provide many benefits for your team. Agile delivery allows for faster and more frequent releases, which can help improve customer satisfaction and increase revenue. It also encourages collaboration and communication among team members, leading to be more efficient and productive work. So I won't continue reading, but you see, just by me reading it, it took longer than it took to generate it. Now, if I didn't like this, I could either easily regenerate it to see what else it would come up with. So now I'm getting my choice of what I want to say instead of taking the first one. Okay, this sounds really professional. I can say, make this sound a little more casual, but I want a little more detail. Since Andrew is a friend, I don't want him to think I'm asking him for money for being so formal. So I'll say, make this more casual and more detailed. Let's see what it comes up with. So great, look at, we got way more detail. And look at this. I love this. If I would have typed this or dictated, it would have took me it would have took me a lot longer to do. What I can also ask it to do is check my calendar and then it will show my time for availability if I wanted. But you seen in this very simple email, in 3 minutes, I was able to look at two or three drafts to get the right tone. So I go from having to either type or author the full email or dictate it to simply just commanding to get it the best. A lot more efficient, a lot more relaxed, and I can get a lot more done within 3 minutes. Thank you for watching the video. I look forward to hearing about stories about how you're using generative AI to make your life better.
Hello, everyone. My name is Joe LaFosse. I am a member of the Atos Global Accessibility Team in North America. Today, I will give a short presentation to show you how AI is being used to improve accessibility, in particular, to aid people with visual impairments. We will look at a new technology, the Picture Smart AI feature in the JAWS screen reader. Machine learning or artificial intelligence is not a perfect science. If you utilize it to obtain any crucial information, it is essential to seek human assistance in order to verify the results. Nevertheless, it can provide very rich and useful information when the models are correct. Let's look at a couple of images using Picture Smart AI. Note that when you submit an image, if you perform the process multiple times, you will obtain slightly different results each time, much like showing a picture to different people. The Picture Smart facility generates results from two services, thus providing two styles of AI technology for each image. We will be using two very different kinds of images to see how AI handles them. Our first image will be a bar graph. The second one shows the cover of the owner's manual for a radio receiver. Let's begin the demo to see how AI describes them. Okay, let's get to the first image.
New recording dash camera and one more page dash work dash Atos 3 stream vertical bar Microsoft GAAD 2 new recording Atos stream GAAD 20 GAAD bar graph candy.web 3.
Okay, let's bring this image up now so we can show it to you.
Enter. Opening new tab. Loading page. Loading complete. Bar graph candy.web left paren 620 times 552 right bar graph candy.
Okay, here's the image. Now we will use AI to describe it.
Space. P. Picture Smart. Picture Smart is in progress, which indicates that the graph is likely.
Okay, let's go to the top and read it.
Heading level 2 Gemini. Heading level 2 Gemini. The image is a bar graph that shows the number of students who prefer each candy flavor. The flavors are green apple, caramel, butterscotch, and banana. The number of students who prefer green apple is 4. The number of students who prefer caramel is 10. The number of students who prefer butterscotch is 8. The number of students who prefer banana is 8. Heading level 2 Chat GPT. The image displays a bar graph titled quote favorite candy. Quote the vertical axis on the left side measures the quote number of students, quote with the numbers ranging from 0 to 14 at intervals of 2. The horizontal axis at the bottom lists various quote candy flavors, quote including green apple, caramel, butterscotch, and banana. There are 4 bars of different colors representing the number of students who prefer each candy flavor. The green apple bar is green and is the highest, suggesting the majority of students prefer this flavor, though the exact number cannot be determined from the image provided. The caramel bar is orange and is approximately half the height of the green apple bar. The butterscotch bar is blue and slightly shorter than the caramel bar. The banana bar is yellow and the shortest among all bars, representing the fewest students preferring this flavor. The graph is set against a light blue backdrop with a playful design, resembling a sheet of notebook paper. The top right corner of the image shows a browser interface indicating that this is a screenshot taken from an online application. There are buttons for screen sharing options like quote stop sharing quote and quote hide, quote which indicates that the graph is likely part of a presentation or a web meeting. Meeting.
Okay, so there was the description used, generated by AI, and we will now close that.
Escape. Bar graph candy.web left paren 620.
And we'll close this image.
Closing tab. Close. New recording dash camera dash desktop content. GAAD 2024. Bar graph candy.web DX390.
Now we'll move on and do the second image.
Enter. Photos. To move to an item, press the arrow key. Full screen button. Zoom to actual size. Full screen button. To activate, press space bar. Enter. Previous button. To activate.
There's the image. You can see that. Now we'll go ahead and use AI to describe this one.
Space. P. Picture Smart. Picture Smart is in progress. Likely meant. Heading level 2 Gemini.
Okay, now we'll go to the top and we'll let it read it.
Heading level 2 Gemini. Heading level 2 Gemini. The image is a black and white photo of a manual for a DX-390 AM/FM world band portable radio. The manual is written in English and has a picture of the radio on the cover. Heading level 2 Chat GPT. The image shows an owner's manual for a Radio Shack device. The manual is titled quote owner's manual AM/FM/world-band portable radio quote and is specifically for model DX-390. The front page of the manual has an illustration of the radio, which is depicted with various buttons and controls, along with a speaker on the left side and an LCD panel above the buttons. The design suggests the radio is capable of receiving a range of signals, including AM, FM, and world-band frequencies. The manual is standing upright, slightly tilted, against a plain, light background on what appears to be a flat surface. The branding quote Radio Shack quote is prominently displayed at the bottom of the manual. The catalog number 20-214 is also noted at the bottom of the page, indicating the specific product or inventory reference for the company. The overall composition of the image is simple, primarily focused on the owner's manual, with no other objects except for what seems to be the edge of another item in the very bottom left corner, which is mostly cropped out and indistinguishable. The photo setting looks like a typical indoor environment, likely meant for displaying or cataloging the manual. There's nothing else in the image that distracts from the main object, which is the manual. Manual.
All right, so there's the description. Now we will close that.
Escape. DX390 manual cover.jpg 3 of 8. GAAD 2024. DX390 manual cover.jpg-photos.
And we'll close the image.
Alt F4 button. To activate, press spacebar.
For both images, AI gave fairly detailed descriptions. Each service provided its unique presentation. You probably also noticed some discrepancies in the information. These examples illustrate the potential of this emerging technology. It will become more robust and helpful as it matures. Thank you.
Now, our North American Accessibility Lead, James Thurston, is holding a roundtable discussion with Maria Town. She's the president and CEO at American Association of People with Disabilities. Lachelle Conway, Human Factors Engineer and Digital Accessibility Program Senior Manager at Northrop Grumman. And Marie Cohan, Digital Accessibility Leader for the state of Texas.
Thank you so much, Courtney. We absolutely want to continue a bit with our Atos GAAD event in the theme of implementing mainstream technology in inclusive ways. As you mentioned, I'm James Thurston. I'm a middle-aged white male. I'm wearing a purplish color shirt. More importantly than that theme, I think we have specifically some great experts and leaders with us as part of this panel, and we want to explore how we are and how we can be creating inclusive and accessible workplaces, including digital workplaces. So good day, Lachelle, Maria, and Marie. Happy GAAD. Thank you for taking some time today to celebrate with us Global Accessibility Awareness Day. We really are fortunate to be able to draw on your insights in your experience leading accessibility and inclusion efforts in your different organizations and over your careers. I'm really pleased that this conversation will showcase different perspectives on the topic in different sectors. So we have the private sector with a leading aerospace company, we have the public sector with one of our biggest states here in the United States, and we have the leading pan-disability advocacy and rights organization here in the US. So fantastic. Let's jump in. We all know that we have, I think, a lot to do when it comes to employment opportunities and people with disabilities. And as part of that puzzle, I think we need to look at creating and maintaining accessible and inclusive workplaces. The statistics are consistently challenging. We all know that. The good news, I think, is that last year in 2023, we actually saw the highest employment rates for people with disabilities in the US, 22%. But unemployment rates for people with disabilities in the US are still twice that of the population as a whole. Labor force participation rates, those people over 16 either working or seeking to work, those numbers are dramatically lower for Americans with disabilities than the rest of the population. But we can make progress. I think that's why we're all here to have this conversation today. So for some level setting to begin, I would love to hear from each of you a little bit about how you think about or define accessibility and inclusion. What does inclusion mean to your organization? How do you define workplace accessibility? And Lachelle, if we could, I'd love to start with you.
Absolutely. Good afternoon, everyone. Again, my name is Lachelle Conway. I am a Black woman with short Black hair on one side and a little bit longer blonde hair on the right. I really think that Northrop Grumman, what it means to be inclusive is really creating an environment where every employee, regardless of their background, their ability, feels valued, feels respected, feels empowered to contribute all of their unique perspectives and be able to come to work and actually get their work done without any barriers. And that's what really that means for us at Northrop Grumman. As far as accessibility in the workplace and what that means, that's a facility That facility should be accessible. The digital workspaces should be accessible. The tools should be available and equally accessible to everyone. And no matter what your ability is, what limitation you may have, you are able to get your job done and you have the tools necessary to work. So that's what it means for Northrop Grumman.
Thanks so much, Lachelle. I love the focus on the entire workplace and all the tools being available to Northrop Grumman employees. Marie, would love to hear how you think about inclusion and accessibility in the state of Texas.
Yeah, and thank you for having me here. So I am a Hispanic woman with curly hair. I'm wearing glasses and I have a white sweater on today. So as far as inclusion goes in our agency and in the state of Texas, we focus on creating digital inclusion for all Texans, for all employees. It's clearly outlined in our regulations. And within our agency, we have a culture of belonging and open communication, which I think is really important to give employees an opportunity, a safe way or safe space to disclose if they have a disability or if they need additional support. We try to create that environment anyway without having to disclose. But I think being able to disclose is really important, especially for the folks that have invisible disabilities. It's easy to forget that there are people dealing with, ADD or autism or dyslexia or PTSD. We have a lot of veterans that work at our agency. Texas is very veteran friendly. So we just need to remember that some of those folks may need some additional support. We want to create that environment for them.
Great. Thank you so much, Marie. And thank you for making that link to culture and to also disclosure as well. Both really important. I think that will come up. Both of those will come up more in this event today. And Maria, we'd love to hear your perspective, both as an employer, but also as someone, as an organization that works with employers and represents people with disabilities.
Yes, thank you so much for this question, James, and thank you for having me here today. My name is Maria Town. I'm a white woman with long brown hair. I'm wearing red lipstick, pearls, and a black dress. So at the American Association of People with Disabilities, we are what's known as a cross disability organization, meaning that we don't focus on a specific disability identity or experience. We instead work on issues and create programs for anyone with a disability, whether or not they have been formally diagnosed and whether they are someone like myself who has cerebral palsy, a neuromuscular developmental disability, or cancer, or long COVID, or depression. So when I think about accessibility and inclusion, one, these are concepts that honor both the diversity of disability identities and the importance of preferences. And this is something that I think is so important. I'll use myself as an example. For people with CP, cerebral palsy, we have all different kinds of needs, even though we have the same disability. So we may all need different types of access solutions. And even within that, we may all have different preferences. And when I think of a truly inclusive workplace, I really loved what you said, Marie. It's one where, employees don't necessarily have to disclose to get their needs met, but if they do disclose, the culture is adaptable enough to really have a process that is individualized and respectful. At AAPD, we also acknowledge that there can be access conflicts. Someone with ADHD may need a really kind of high sensory engagement environment, and someone with autism may need a different type of environment, and someone who is autistic and ADHD may need different types of environments at different times. And sometimes it's tough to make those things work together. And a core part of creating access is actually acknowledging where those conflicts happen and figuring out ways to work through them.
Thank you so much, Maria, and again, thank you also for bringing up a couple of really important themes. I think one is that this is kind of a journey for all kinds of companies in working through these conflicts. I think these access conflicts. I think is important and part of that journey into making progress. And then also just really, I think, and this makes sense for you as the leader of AAPD, honoring that diversity and that range of preferences of people with disabilities is really important, including in the workplace, whether it's the IT and accessibility departments or the workplace accommodations team or really any unit. So thank you for helping us to level set around those concepts as well. And now I would love to start to look at kind of the meat of the matter, the challenges and solutions. I mentioned in my introduction some of I think the really disappointing and really stubborn employment statistics for people with disabilities here in the US. And so I'm wondering if we can discuss together some common challenges that all of our organizations face. Our organization is also, we do consulting and help clients and customers on accessibility, but our team also is on our own journey to make sure that for our employees with disabilities that we are increasingly accessible and inclusive. So what strategies have each of you found to be effective in dealing with some of the key challenges, and what are those challenges, and what are some ways from your perspective, from your experience, that employers can create a more accessible workplace, more inclusive workplace, including digital environments? And for this, Marie, how about we start with you on that one?
Yeah, thank you. So I think having a robust policy as an organization, one that is not just within your HR practices, but also in your procurement practices. So you're ensuring that you're procuring accessible technology for your employees to use, that you have those contracts in place to do so, especially in the public sector. We have to have those contracts set up ahead of time. We can't just go out to market and purchase something. The state of Texas is really good about having robust contracts in place, so that not just my agency, but all of our customers in higher ed can purchase from it to get the technology that they need. Having good practices within your IT group. So again, making sure your IT department is looking for accessible technology. If you have in-house developers, making sure that they are trained so they know how to develop accessible technology or websites for that matter. Building it into your project management life cycles. So, making sure that accessibility is a conversation and planned for and tested for throughout your project management life cycle when it comes to technology, whether it's an implementation or a development project. All of this goes towards helping your employees. But the most important right now, which is one I'm really trying to talk a lot about in Texas, is leadership. So making sure your executive leadership is aware of the digital accessibility field, what's needed for your employees. What happens when we don't have compliant technology? So is your team doing a risk assessment? Is the executive in charge willing to accept that level of risk? What alternate plans or accommodations or corrective actions do they have in place if something goes wrong? I think all of this is part of a robust policy and processes that can really support not just your employees, but eventually it supports your customers too.
Absolutely. And I'm smiling because I always love it when colleagues bring up procurement as sort of what I consider almost the low-hanging fruit of accessibility, that if you're making sure that you're buying stuff that's accessible, it's going to be easier to deploy and implement and maintain those investments to be accessible as well. So that's great. And really pointing to leadership, I did some work with the CIO of a major university, and he referred to the key role of leadership in the organization and driving those policies and those governance systems across different units and all parts of the enterprise, as you're describing, Marie. And without that leadership, what he saw at his university at the time was what he called pockets of heroic effort. It's one person doing some good stuff, but it doesn't scale the accessibility like leadership can. So thank you for bringing that up as a strategy and a solution. Maria, I would love to hear from your perspective and AAPD's perspective, some insights on challenges and solutions.
Thank you. I think it's really important to acknowledge that part of why we see such low disability employment numbers and low workforce engagement numbers overall is because of the broader systems and policies that people with disabilities often must engage with in order to get our needs met. For example, Medicaid, which is one of the only ways that people can afford or pay for personal attendant services or direct support services, is not portable across state lines. So if I've gotten Medicaid in Louisiana and my job needs me to move to Texas, it doesn't matter that it's one state away. If I move, I lose my services. Similarly, sometimes people who need Medicaid also will need to go onto supplemental security income, which has very, very, very low asset limits that actually prevent them from working and prevent them from saving money for the future. And we have seen some employers actually acknowledge these realities and find ways to help keep disabled employees employed. So maybe shifting an employee from working full-time to part-time can actually keep someone engaged at their job and allow them to remain connected to their benefits. Maintaining remote work policies is crucially important. James, you mentioned the uptick that we've seen in disability employment over the past few years, and we really saw that with the COVID-19 pandemic and the expansion of remote work. Prior to COVID, people with disabilities have been asking for remote work as an accommodation for decades, and we were often denied. And then at this moment when everyone needed to work remotely, companies figured it out. One of the things that I am nervous about is that we'll see companies say we need to go back to normal and restrict a lot of remote work policies that have been really beneficial for people with disabilities, especially. The last thing that I want to note is the importance of centralized accommodation funds so that all entities across an enterprise know how accommodations will get paid for, and they are not somehow choosing not to hire or promote or advance an employee because they assume that their accommodations will be too expensive because they happen to have a very small budget. We have really seen huge impacts of centralized accommodation funds, and I hope that every employer will look into them as something they can use to promote equity in their workforce.
Thank you for bringing up the key role of public policy around supporting employers who want to be doing better and having a more accessible and inclusive workplace, advancing the careers of their employees with disabilities, supporting them throughout their career. But often these public policies also play a role in their ability as employers to do what they want to do. So really important for raising that. I appreciate that. Lachelle, we'd love to hear from you on this topic of challenges and solutions.
Absolutely. Maria and Marie made some incredible points. And I'm trying to get the names, they're very close. But they touched on procurement. I think that's incredibly important, making sure that you have the right language, you're procuring accessible tech, leadership coming in from Northrop Grumman, Kathy Warden, our CEO, down to her leaders, down to the senior leaders, the mid-level leaders. We're really sharing the same messaging. That's important so from the top down. I think the centralized accommodations process is critical. We have that at Northrop Grumman as well. And it really makes the accommodation process a lot simpler for those wherever they are. They don't have to necessarily go through their management. They can just literally go through our process and they can get what they need to be successful. But I really like this question because I think diversity is one of Northrop Grumman's superpowers. We put a lot of eggs into the diversity bucket. We are a global company with over 100,000 people at the company. So it can get complex, I'll say that. So we have to use what we have. We partner with our ERGs, our employee resource groups. I'm very passionate about ERGs. I actually co-lead our disability inclusion ERG, the Voice ERG. And that's inclusive for like people with disabilities who identify with disabilities and those who are caretakers of those with disabilities. And then we have, I believe, 21, 22 other ERGs. And we have a lot of intersectionality. And when we partner and we have folks who are remote, those are on sites, those are on programs, those who are in the office, we're able to share a lot of the different best practices and what we need to do to be more inclusive, and sharing just that diverse perspective and how we all engage really continues to help with our strategy in a simple way. So I would say just being strategic and leveraging what we have, using our platforms like LinkedIn. My CEO will post about diversity, and being included with partnerships with different partners like Disability In. And we have other Fortune 500 companies and other big companies who are going through the same challenges and opportunities and sharing stories with us in order for us to go back and leverage, so we don't reinvent the wheel and we can talk across the aisle opposed to having being in those siloed environments. So it really is a great opportunity for us to engage with others. And I think those partnerships are one thing that we didn't touch on. And I think that they're key when you're in the space.
Thank you, Lachelle, for that. Thank you. And we will touch on partnerships and collaboration, because I think we all agree that that is key. But thank you for previewing that a bit. And I like the superpower terminology and making a link also to ERGs as part of that superpower. I think you're exactly right. I see leading organizations, companies, governments that really do partner and collaborate with your ERGs and structure it in a way that is incredibly impactful. So great to hear. And I'm really happy that both you and Maria have touched on the workplace accommodations process as well, and how important that is in structuring that right, and the policies and governing of that to really make sure that employees with disabilities in an organization are supported, again, throughout their career. So in the fireside chat before this discussion, we heard Javi and Mario talk a lot about data and the importance of data to the workplace of today and the workplace of tomorrow. And certainly the saying goes, and one that I like, that we do what we measure. So I'd like to explore just a little bit how to measure the impact of accessibility and inclusion initiatives and efforts and programs. And we'd love to hear from you, Marie, and Maria in particular, your thoughts on metrics or success indicators related to inclusion and accessibility, and how do we know if we're making progress? Marie, would you like to kick that off?
Yeah, thank you. So I'm going to speak really more to the state of Texas as a whole versus just my agency. So my agency has authority through statute to create kind of the rules that everyone in Texas follows from the public sector standpoint. So the way we measure compliance with those rules or alignment, so to speak, is we submit a survey every 2 years. So we're on a biennial kind of cycle. So we just did it this year, and it just closed out in March, and it has questions on it related to the different programs that we have. So DIR provides free training for all state of Texas employees on digital accessibility. We provide free web scanning for agency and higher ed websites up to a certain page count, so they can just have, every couple of days they get their site scanned automatically, and they have a dashboard where they can go in and look at issues that pop up. So we want to support compliance with those rules. So we provide these programs. I provide a lot of community support. I have monthly digital accessibility meetups, which we call coffee chats. I hold office hours every week, just to make sure the community is engaged. We have a team site for them to ask questions, and so I can look at engagement metrics within those different venues for them. And then with our survey, they need to answer questions that relate to the training we offer, to the web scanning that we offer, compliance, where they're at with compliance on the different rules that we have published. And we take that data and we compare it to our strategic planning. So digital accessibility in the state of Texas is really important. It's built into the state strategic plan. It's built into our agency strategic plan. And that survey kind of helps us see from a kind of benchmarking where we are in achieving the goals that we've set for the state.
Fantastic. I love the idea of extending those metrics and those dashboards beyond what you might expect around what's important around web accessibility and maybe accessibility of applications, but to training as well and engagement across the state on these topics, which is really important to scaling the efforts. Ultimately, is that kind of training and engagement. So great to hear. Maria, how about you?
Of course, measuring overall presence of people with disabilities in your workforce and in your employee base is so important. I unfortunately can't tell you how many times I've seen kind of diversity presentation from a company and people with disabilities just aren't included in that demographic profile whatsoever. And there's a good reason for that. I think historically, a lot of people have thought that you cannot ask about disability because of the way that the Americans with Disabilities Act is structured, and because it's not in the EO1 category, which is like a HR form that we have to fill out in the United States that asks about gender and race. But you can ask about disability and make it an optional, again, opt-in question. And this is very important when you are trying to build a culture of self-disclosure. So if you can start building a baseline of disability data. And I think around measuring success, you can't really measure success if you've never had a baseline to begin with. So a key part of actually creating success is taking a close look at what you're currently measuring and asking who isn't there, what kinds of experiences aren't measured there, and how can we build those metrics in. Also looking at the kinds of accommodations people are requesting, and very importantly, the timeliness with which those accommodations are actually fulfilled. An accommodation delayed is an accommodation denied, in my opinion. And we see often that people with disabilities and jobs, they spend so much time waiting for their tech to get set up that it diminishes their performance and they face penalties in their job, and that's not their fault. I also want to note, if you're not getting feedback on accessibility of your products or services, that doesn't necessarily mean that you're doing a good job. It may mean that your products or services are not accessible, so disabled people just aren't engaging with them. So making sure that you actually have a way for customers and employees to report accessibility barriers is critically important. And going back to kind of where I started, if you're getting critical or negative feedback on accessibility, that is actually not a reason to stop kind of working on this. That is a huge reason to commit and further invest in accessibility. And if we're all kind of doing our jobs right and committing to diversity and inclusion, we're going to be bringing more people in, whether that's more people into our office spaces or online communities or into our customer bases. And so we're going to be getting more feedback around, this didn't work exactly right for me, or I had an issue with this. So that's actually expanding the scope of who we think of in our communities and what is inclusion.
Thank you so much, Maria, for a really a meaty answer around metrics, which again, I love data and metrics, particularly in this space. And I'm glad that you also made that link to a topic that's come up earlier in this conversation around disclosure. I think probably most of you are aware, but maybe for some of the folks that will be watching our discussion, I know the Boston Consulting Group has done some really interesting research on disability in the workplace, and found that companies typically report low numbers of employees with disabilities, from between 4 and 7%. But if you scratch beneath the surface a little bit, what they have found in their research is that there are many more employees with disabilities, that up to 25% actually. And so finding that way to make it comfortable for people to disclose and to get a better sense of what is the probably large number of employees with disabilities in the workplace is really important. So finally, let's end on I think one of my favorite topics, collaboration. Lachelle, thank you for previewing that and kicking that off a bit. How can organizations collaborate with external partners? It could be NGOs, nonprofits, government agencies, their vendor system, but partner to enhance accessibility and inclusion in employment opportunities and success in the workplace for people with disabilities. And Lachelle, let's start with you again on that.
Since I sped off a little bit on that, on the last question, starting with the partnerships, I'm gonna go back just one step to our internal partnership, just because we're such a large organization. We think, again, partnerships are essential, not only with different programs and organizations, but that inclusion of including people with disabilities in the conversation. So want to just make sure that we continue to share that internal partnerships, whether it's with your developers, your IT, your leadership. Everyone has a different stake in accessibility. I like to say, oh, you have a part, and everyone's like, oh, I didn't realize I was here and I had a role in all of this. So just spreading that awareness is definitely incredible and important, especially as for Northrop Grumman, as we digitally transform our enterprise. I found a lot of opportunity, and then we'll go to the partnerships now. With one, looking at how other companies are starting to ingest technology. We go back to the workplace accommodations and how we receive those accommodations. There are a lot of people who do not self-ID with having a disability, but with new technologies and all these inbuilt capabilities that are in technology, as we retire legacy applications and software and hardware, we're able to now leverage things like Teams. We're using Teams right now for this webinar, and you have the ability to go in and change your color contrast, enable captioning and things like that. And so talking across the aisle, when I meet with my partners at Disability and they have a quarterly disability, digital accessibility committee leadership forum, we're able to share what we're doing in our spaces as far as technology and get best practices. And then we bring that back to our organizations and we say, all right, let's try what's been done. Let's try the tried and true. Then we have partnerships with the people, organizations like IAAP, International Association of Accessibility Professionals, where you're able to give resource, access to diverse talent, to include those with disabilities, and just really a plethora of different resources. And for myself, having ADHD, I leverage tools all the time that I don't necessarily request an accommodation for. So I'm really excited about the future of technology. I think if we continue to spread the message and we partner with our different partners at big companies, small companies, and we hold the vendors accountable, they'll start to make their technology accessible, and this will be hopefully a thing of the past. So with that, I'll pass the baton.
Thank you so much, Lachelle. And that's a great list of very robust partnerships, and congratulations to you for taking advantage of that. Maria, how about you? Your perspective on collaboration and partnership?
I completely agree. Partnerships are essential. When I think about what it actually takes to create access and inclusion, as Lachelle said, everyone has a role, and that's even broader than everyone in a company. That's everyone from, again, our government leaders and policymakers, our educators, the folks that are managing our transportation systems and our communication systems. And so we would not be able to achieve the accessibility that we have currently, nor the accessibility that we want in the future, without partnering with other organizations in our same space, in the nonprofit space or in the civil rights space, or without partnering with government entities or companies. I think about web accessibility regulations that just got finalized. This was a conversation that brought Marie and I together a few months ago when we were trying to figure out how do we actually make this happen. And I talked to so many of AAPD's corporate partners to say, I hope that you are supportive of this Title II regulation, because guess what? Title III is coming and you're going to have to comply with that, we hope. Because ultimately, whether it's a civil rights organization or a nonprofit, a state or local government entity, or companies like Northrop Grumman, all of us play a role in everyone's day-to-day lives. So it really takes cross-sector collaboration to create meaningful access and inclusion.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Maria. And Marie.
I'm going to touch on 3 collaborations and partnerships at the government level. So at the very top, we have, there's a multi-state collaborative where all of the states that participate in the U.S. Meet once a month, and we share with each other what's going on in our state with regard to accessibility for citizens, for our employees, et cetera. And that's really helpful. And it's a great way to share knowledge and come up with new practices so that we can provide our best. Within the state, my program has created a really strong community, and we've brought all of the digital accessibility experts together to share knowledge, to work through problems together, to mentor, to share policies. So nobody has to start over from scratch. So we want to make sure everybody's working at the same level. So whatever we can do to share whatever is needed to keep us at that level, keep us moving forward, we do so. And I have a really passionate, engaged community that has been wonderful. And then really the most important, I think, of all of those, not that, the other two aren't important, but Texas has very strong private-public partnerships with our vendor community. And most government today, we're not developing very much anymore. We're outsourcing it with the vendor community. We're buying products from the vendor community. So we really rely on vendors to build accessible technology, to develop accessible products. And so I like to use the term vendor evangelization. Because really they're the crux of it, right? We know what we need to do to comply with law, but we can't do it alone. So we need to get our partners, our business partners engaged to help us be successful on that compliance journey. What we do at DIR is we host vendor conferences on every solicitation so that, we can talk about accessibility, answer their questions right there before we get to that point in time in the solicitation where we can't communicate anymore. We document all of the questions and answers and provide it for them. We have vendor training. So the training I mentioned for state of Texas employees, we provide training specific for our vendors on how to procure in Texas technology-wise and make it accessible, and what those requirements are for documentation. And then just constantly talking with those vendors, because if we have non-compliant technology that we have to procure, we have a whole exception process that we have to do, which involves a risk assessment and coming up with an alternate plan. And executive leadership needs to, sign off on that exception. And we have to determine what level of risk we're willing to accept in buying that particular technology. So I coach my agencies and universities. When you do an exception on something, it's not a one and done. You need to continue having that conversation with that vendor regularly, like annually or every 2 years, to make sure that they are working towards making their product accessible. We really don't want to let our vendors kind of get off the hook. We want to make sure they understand that they have just as much stake in this process as we do. And we're relying on them to bring the accessible technology to us for us to use. So to me, that is the most important partnership, is with the vendor community, with the private sector when it comes to government.
Fantastic. I love all of those remarks on collaboration and partnership, and what a great place to wind down our conversation today with a spotlight on the reality that creating a truly inclusive workplace, a truly accessible workplace, does require collaboration. It's a collective and team effort. So Lachelle, Marie, Maria, thank you all for the work that you're doing in your organizations and for sharing this great expertise today. I think a challenge for all of us as we move forward, for all of our organizations, is in the spirit of Global Accessibility Awareness Day, not just one day, but really every day, is turning these kinds of conversations, these kinds of sharing of best practices into action. And as leaders and professionals and employers, we can really commit to implementing accessible policies, fostering a workplace of culture and empathy and belonging and diversity, and really creating and maintaining, importantly, accessible and inclusive workplaces. So thank you to each of you, and thanks for everyone in joining us in this celebration of GAAD.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Wow, just an incredible discussion. Thank you. And thank you for joining us today. Technology possesses the remarkable ability to break down barriers and uplift individuals. When we embrace inclusive design principles and incorporate features that cater to diverse needs, we create digital experiences that seamlessly serve all users. Let's build a world where technology is intuitive, accessible, and empowers everyone. If you'd like to learn more about accessibility and the difference we can make in your workplace, head to our website. There and our social media channels, you'll be able to rewatch this webcast.